Hello students, this week we're going to discuss lab safety and hand washing. Now it's important to talk about lab safety rules, especially in a microbiology lab, because those safety rules are not just going to protect you, but can also protect others as well in class. So it can protect your classmates, your instructor. So it's really important that you follow those safety rules to keep everyone, including yourself, safe in a microbiology lab setting. Some of these basic rules that we have to follow in a microbiology lab are the following. No eating, drinking, or chewing gum or smoking are allowed in the lab. That's because we are always handling microbes, and those microbes are alive in the microbiology lab, and so therefore you do not want to contaminate your food with those microbes. You always have to put on a lab coat. The lab coat must be long enough that when you sit, it's going to be covering your knees. Long sleeves are also a must when you are choosing your lab coat. We always ask you to put on a lab coat because, again, you do not want to splash anything on you, spill anything on your clothes, so the lab coat is there to protect you. We also ask students to put on long pants, so shorts are not allowed, skirts are not allowed. And again, just in case you spill something, the pants is going to protect your skin. Students must put on closed-toed shoes in the lab, so no sandals, flip-flops, or even Crocs are allowed in the lab. Safety glasses or goggles must be worn at all times in the lab. And again, this is to protect your eyes so that if anything splashes on you, your eyes are protected. Hair must be tied back, especially if you have long hair. You must tie your hair back. We are using open flame in the lab, so you do not want your hair to catch on fire. You don't want your hair to actually dip into any of the chemicals that we are using, so you must tie your hair back. Also, students are expected not to wear any jewelry in the lab. And then only essential items such as your notebook or your pen, pencil are allowed on your workstation. Everything else needs to be put away. Cell phones also must be put away, so you should not be using your cell phone in a microbiology lab. Microbiology lab procedures require usually you have to time yourself when you are, let's say, doing some staining procedures. Now, can students use their cell phone as a timer? No. So cell phones are not even allowed to be used as timers. So you have to put your cell phone away because, again, you do not want your cell phone to be there while you're handling all of those different types of bacteria in the class, and then your cell phone would get contaminated. Some other basic rules, you must wash your hand at the beginning of lab, and you also must wash your hand at the end of lab. Now, why do we ask students, though, to wash their hands at the beginning of lab? Because we do not want you to contaminate your sample. During lab, let's say you would want to go ahead and culture, meaning grow, a specific type of bacteria. And so your hands on your skin, you actually have bacteria on your skin that can actually contaminate your sample. And so instead of growing one type of bacteria, some of that bacteria on your hands can go ahead and get cultured along the way, and so you would have contaminated your sample. So it's extremely important that you wash your hand at the beginning of lab, and then also at the end of lab, of course, after, dealing with all of, the bacteria, etc. We also ask you to wash your hands at the end of lab. Now, in between, you can wash your hands as many times as you want. And if students step outside of the lab, let's say to go to the restroom, they would have to wash their hands before they step outside. And then when they come back, they have to wash their hands again. Students need to disinfect their workbench at the beginning of the lab and also at the end. And again, we always disinfect before starting the lab. Again, just to make sure that you are starting off with a clean station to lower the chances of any contamination you might face. And then, of course, we have to clean it at the end as well. All contaminated materials should be discarded appropriately in their designated areas. So there's usually an area where you can discard your contaminated test tubes, your contaminated plates. There should be a designated area for each of the following. You should never, throw anything in the trash, especially if it's contaminated with bacteria. So anything contaminated with bacteria, you cannot throw it in the regular trash. Again, there are going to be designated areas in the lab that are labeled, and this is where you should go ahead and place your contaminated items. And always ask when you are not sure where to discard a contaminated item, and your instructor should help you out. Microscopes are used a whole lot in a microbiology lab setting, and so students are expected to know how to put them away properly. We are going to talk about microscopes later in the semester, and so we're going to discuss that more in detail. Students should know the location of the following items: fire extinguisher, because as I said, in microbiology labs, we usually use Bunsen burners. And so therefore, you need to know, just in case an accident happens, where's the fire extinguisher. Eye wash. That's why we ask you to put on, of course, your goggles, right, to prevent anything from splashing in your eye. But if an accident took place and there is something that got splashed in your eye, there is an eye wash that you can go ahead and flush your eye. And if that happens, you would have to flush your eye for 15 minutes straight. Shower. There's also a shower just in case something got spilled on you. There's a shower in the lab. And then also know where is the first aid kit. There are the following websites that I recommend that you guys go ahead and check out and watch those videos. You're going to watch a video about hand washing and the importance of hand washing. There's also a video about lab safety rules, so go ahead and check them out. For this lab, you're going to complete the lab safety and hand washing virtual lab.